Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Welcome to another episode of Ask Huda. I am your host, Omar Dunlap, and we have with us in the studio our beloved Sheikh, Dr. Mohamed Salah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Omar. Jazakallah khairan.
Wa jazakum. And I would like to remind our viewers of our telephone number, 002-0238-555-248 or 249, or you can email us your questions at ask@huda.tv. Sheikh, our first question here is about the Jummah prayer. Brother Mukhtar from the United Arab Emirates, he wants to know that since it is best for women to pray at home, is she allowed to pray while the khutbah is going on since she's in her house? And can you explain why it's better for a woman to pray at home? And why is it mentioned in Hadith and Sirah that women were attending the khutbah for Jummah?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyyihi wa Mustafa Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. All praise due to Allah alone. We praise Him and we seek His help. Whosoever Allah guides is a truly guided one. And whosoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. May the best peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. First of all, it is not mandatory on women to attend the congregational prayers in the masjid, whether it's one of the 5 daily prayers or the Jumu'ah prayer. But it is permissible for a woman to attend the prayer if she wishes to do that, and if it is safe and secure. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا تمنعوا إماء الله المساجد. He ordered men not to prevent nor stop women from attending the masajid if they want to, simply because the masajid were not only constructed to attend the prayers, but the gathering of the hilaqul ilm, halqa of knowledge, hearing the dhikr, listening to the khutbah, such as the Friday khutbah, the Eid khutbah, etc. The only recommended prayer for a woman to attend even during the state of menses is the 2 Eid prayers, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, where she does not actually pray, rather she attends the dhikr, she attends the prayer, and she witnesses the pleasure of the celebration of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. But in any case, if there is a dars, if there is a khutbah, if there is a lesson, where a woman is required to learn the minimum requirement of Islamic knowledge which will enable her to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly and to raise her kids properly and transfer this knowledge to them, then it is of course recommended for them to attend the masajid, whether in the prayer or after or before the prayer. Keep in mind that it is not permissible for women to attend or enter the masjid while in a state of the menses. If a woman is praying at home and she's praying during the Jumu'ah time, she's inquiring about what time can she pray. Does she have to wait until the khutbah is over? No, because you're not praying Jumu'ah, rather you're praying Dhuhr. So once you hear the adhan, or once the time enters, which is after the zawal, after the sun removes away from its meridian, then it is permissible for yourself to pray, because you're going to pray Dhuhr, not Jumu'ah. With regards to which one is more preferable, to pray in the masjid, in congregation, or at home for women, we have a sound hadith that is narrated by Humaydin, the wife of Abu Humaydin al-Sa'idi, may Allah be pleased with him and his wife and his entire family. She once came to the Prophet ﷺ and she said it very clearly, "O Prophet of Allah, I love to pray with you," meaning I love to pray as a ma'moom or a follower behind you as an imam. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Indeed, I've known that. I know that you love to pray behind me. But indeed, it is better for you to pray at home. And your prayer at home is superior to your prayer with me in my masjid." Which masjid? The prophetic masjid, which the Prophet ﷺ said in its regard, one prayer in my masjid is 1,000 times superior to praying anywhere else, except obviously in al-Masjid al-Haram. There is some more details with regards to that. Even when you pray in your own room is better than praying in the reception and praying in the bigger area in the house. because I quoted this reference in order to answer the later part of the question, which says why? Because concealing for women is much, much more preferable and superior. She will only have to go out for a necessity, such as seeking knowledge, for instance, or a single mom who is supporting the family financially. Nowadays, it's very, very common. So we say it is permissible for you to find a reasonable job and work in a halal job. But if we have the choice, and if nowadays, for instance, the sisters can seek knowledge online, the religious knowledge I mean, then it is preferable for her to pray at home and to attend the classes at the convenience of her house. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. We have on the line now Brother Uthman. Go ahead, brother, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, ya Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please, Sheikh, my question is, I have the problem is concerning my wife. Whenever he's praying, sometimes he used to make wudu for a single salah more than 10 times. Sometimes he passing winds, he cannot control it. So, do you have any solution to that, please?
Okay.
Yes, inshallah azza wa jal.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that question, brother. We also have on the line Brother Abu Abdurrahman from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Go ahead, brother, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have, Sheikh, 3 questions. The first question is, can we use dawah material that has good information, that has also some background music in it? For example, there's a YouTube video that has some very good information about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ being mentioned in the Song of Solomon in the Torah. It's mentioned by name, and it has very good it's directed very well. It has some very good dawah information in it. But there's some background music in the video. Can we use that to do dawah, knowing that we're not allowed really to listen to music?
Okay.
And the second question is, can my wife, we both have family that live overseas, can my wife travel by herself to visit her family if they get sick, or do I have to travel with her?
Okay.
Or in case we go on vacation and we don't have a long time to travel together to both places at the same time, can we travel?
How long is the distance? How long is the travel distance?
The travel distance, it's in the United States and we live in Saudi Arabia, so it's over 1 day, it's over 24 hours.
Okay.
And the third question is, if one sister has 2 brothers and her father has passed away, is there a certain criteria by which to choose which brother becomes the wali, or is it the sister's choice, or is it one of the brothers' choice, or both of their choices? How does this work out?
Yes, of course, there is an order that has to be followed. I will answer you inshallah right now. Jazakallah khairan, Abu Abdurrahman. Next, please.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. We have on the line now Brother Mohammed from Qatar. Go ahead, brother, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you?
How are you, Muhammad?
Alhamdulillah. Okay, I have a question. Can you explain what is sunnah, please? Because what I mean is, do we have to follow Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's instructions or Rasul's instruction and seerah? What is the correct method?
Can you tell me the difference between the sunnah and the seerah?
Sunnah instructions, I mean the instructions, and seerah means all his life.
Okay. As a matter of fact, inshallah, when I get to answer this question, I will explain the difference if there is any. Okay?
Okay, welcome.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. So, Brother Abu Abdurrahman's second question then, or his third one actually, 2 brothers for 1 sister, the father passed away. Who becomes the wali in that situation, or what's the criteria?
The oldest brother, if there are many, if there are 2, then the oldest one is the wali. That order has to be followed, so the sister does not have this choice to choose based on her desire, unless obviously if the person who is supposed to be the wali or succeed the father in the guardianship is not a practicing Muslim. So he is not wise in making decisions such as choosing the best life mate for his sister, or he would follow his desire. And that has to be determined not based on hawa, but rather based on who is really supposed to be the wali and who's taking care of his responsibility. Wallahu a'lam. Abu Abdurrahman's second question was pertaining da'wah material that contains music and he wants to pass them on. We have tons of da'wah materials, wonderful and beautiful, and it is music free. So I don't want the shaitan to make it seem to you it's better to pass on this movie or material which is produced by whatever foreign channel or any producer, because alhamdulillah wa shukla, we already have many da'wah materials which is excellent and is music free.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for those answers, Sheikh. We have on the line now Sister Abdurrahim from the United Arab Emirates. Go ahead, sister, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, my question is pertaining to punishment in the grave and death.
Okay.
Because I saw a program today on Huda, and it said that the first thing that happens after you're put in the grave and the footsteps you hear people leaving is that you're squeezed in the grave. And I always thought that the first thing was that you'll sit up and the angels will ask you the 3 questions, and then after that, according to how you answer, you'll either be squeezed or the grave will be made spacious for you.
Okay.
And I also wanted to ask, when you ask at the end of your prayer for Allah to protect you from the punishment in the grave, is that including the squeezing, or is that separate from that? You should make a different dua for that.
Okay.
And my son just has a question.
Sure.
If you could just answer it. 1 minute, please. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah. How are you? What's your name?
Fine. My name is Abdussalam.
Okay, Abdussalam, what's your question?
My question is the 3rd day of Hajj. Do we have to say all day, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, or only half the day?
Okay, the 3rd day of Hajj, you're talking about the 11th day, right?
2nd day.
3rd or 2nd? Okay, let's talk about it this way. If we're talking about the actual beginning of Hajj is on the 8th, when you assume the intention of Ihram on Yawm al-Tarwiyah. Then the 2nd day, that is the 9th, which is the day of Arafah. Then the 3rd day, that is the Eid day. Okay?
Yeah.
And the Talbiyah is seized on the Eid day by the time you throw the first stone at Jamratul Aqabat al-Kubra. This is when you start making the Talbiyah and you start making the takbirat of the Eid. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. So in the case of the Umrah, the Talbiyah will be stopped or seized once you reach the black stone corner and you're ready to begin your tawaf. While in the case of the Hajj, the Talbiyah would stop at the time of throwing the first stone on the Eid day. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that question, brother. We have on the line now Sister Fatima from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Go ahead, sister, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have 2 questions. My first question is it okay to contribute to Islamic magazines or start your own website if you don't have some sort of Islamic knowledge, as in you don't have a degree in Islam or something like that, just to share information, share articles, good articles that you've read, or good lectures and videos?
Absolutely, absolutely. Every Muslim is required to be proactive in da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Every man is in loss except those who believe and do good righteous deeds. And on top of that, the foremost part of the good righteous deeds after belief is to enjoin one another to the truth through propagating da'wah, propagating the true word of Islam, good articles, good materials that would bring people closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether Muslims make them better Muslims, whether Muslims inform them about, whether non-Muslims to inform them about Islam, and perhaps be a reason to guide them to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everybody is invited and required to play a role and be proactive in propagating Islam. And this is one of the best means, of course. Media nowadays, brothers and sisters, is the best tool and mean of giving da'wah, whether through the reading materials or the audio video or the websites. I know personally that there are some websites where people accept Islam every 3 to 5 people every day on some websites.
MashaAllah.
So if you have a magazine which, alhamdulillah, shukla, it is widely distributed and it covers a broad spectrum, then donating or contributing, whether financially or through writing articles or sending materials which you already have, is highly encouraged. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. And Sister Fatima, I think we missed your second question. I think you got cut off. So if you call back, inshallah, we'll try to get your question. Brother Uthman called in and he said his wife is making wudu as many as 10 times a day, or as much as 10 times a day. He thinks maybe she might have some medical issue there.
Yeah.
What to do about that?
It's not only that we feel sorry for you, but for her as well. And simply because there is a lack of fiqh, number one, and there could be a disease or a disorder, and that has a treatment. With regards to the lack of fiqh, we have a hadith that is collected by Imam al-Bukhari, may Allah have mercy on him, Abbad ibn Tamim, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that his uncle once asked the Prophet ﷺ about if somebody finds or feels some bowel movement or disturbance, so he thinks or he believes that he may have passed one or broke gas in the prayer, what should he do? This is something that happens to every one of us. Then sometimes it increases to the point that it will be exaggerated. The person in every single salah or wudu, or after making wudu, he or she might think, oops, I void my wudu, I need to make a new wudu, or I void my salah, and so on. So the worship will become a series of misery, will become a torture, not just for the individual who's offering the worship, but also his family members. And I think we have witnessed cases like that through other callers who have called earlier. So let's see the fiqh part. How did the Prophet ﷺ answer the question of Abbad's uncle? He said, لا ينصرف أو لا ينفلت حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا. One should not leave the prayer simply because of doubt, unless if he's certain that he broke wind or passed gas. How? Through being actually convinced that you did that, or hearing a sound, or through the smell. So if none of the above, then your wudu is valid and you should continue in your prayer. You should not interrupt your prayer simply because of thoughts, which is originally whispers of a shaitan. Whispers of a shaitan. وَإِمَّا يَنزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. Once those whispers of a shaitan come to you, whether in the prayer or in the wudu, then simply seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. A shaitan tries to make your ibadah very heavy and difficult to the point that it becomes a mean of torture to you and to your family members. As you could hear, the brother was really suffering through asking his question, that his life has become very hard through his wife's prayer. So I would say there are two ways to do it. Number one, when you make wudu, once you finish your wudu, disregard any thought that your wudu was incomplete, or you may have forgotten to wash the right arm, or you washed the left before the right, or you did not wipe over your hair. Just disregard all of that. I assure you, you did perform wudu properly, 100%. Because this is a disorder that happens in every wudu. It's not just once. And it has no evidence. Al-Imam al-Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on him, he said this hadith is a cornerstone in this regard. In what regard? In regard of cutting any doubt with certainty. Giving priority to certainty over doubt. I'm not sure if this place is clean or not clean, pure or impure. I'm not really sure whether my clothes, but the original condition of my clothes, they were clean. So what made you think that they're not clean? I don't know. Maybe some bad happened. Maybe some urine soil that soiled my clothes. Maybe. I say, disregard all of the maybes and think of one thing. Originally it was clean. And originally you made wudu. You have no certainty that you void your wudu. You have no proof that you skipped the right arm or the left foot or. And the biggest and the best way to do that is everyone now have a digital camera at home. Just video camera yourself once while you're making wudu. Then review it. You will notice that you did not skip a single part of the wudu. and you've done everything in order and properly. And in this case, you do it once, twice, several times, and that will cut it short. This is the best way of treating this. So the shaitan will transfer you from the problem of having doubt in wudu to the problem of having doubt in the salah. And most likely those who have doubts in the wudu, they also encounter doubts in the salah. How many rak'ahs I prayed? 3 or 4. Did I recite the Fatiha in the first rak'ah? But I'm already ready to finish the prayer. These are all wasawis min al-shaytan. Medically speaking, there is a disorder which is known as an OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder. If it is that kind of disorder, then I will direct you immediately to a psychiatrist where there is a treatment for that. But if it is only limited to the wudu and the ibadah, then most likely it is the whispers of a shaitan. But if this disorder is really covering or overwhelmingly covering your entire life, not just with the ibadah, but with the homework, with the spending money, with the buying things, with the finishing any duty with your work, then this is a disorder that you really have to seek a treatment, the proper remedy with a psychiatrist, inshaAllah Azza Jal. And recite Ayatul Kursi a lot, and increase saying, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم. There is no mighty nor power but with Allah the Great. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم. And remember the hadith of Al-Bukhari. Just do it once and disregard any doubt. يقطع الشك باليقين. والله أعلم.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. Brother Abu Abdurrahman from the KSA, he was asking in his second question that he and his wife are overseas, they have jobs overseas, but if the wife's family becomes sick, can she travel alone?
Once again, traveling alone for a woman without a mahram is prohibited, without a male mahram, unless if it is necessary and she does not have a male mahram at that time, or she has a male mahram but it is not possible for him to travel for an emergency or. So because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us what's prohibited to be taking place in cases of necessity. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِلَّا مَا اضْطُرِرْتُمْ إِلَيْهِ أَوْ فَمَنُ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ فِي مَخْمَصَةٍ غَيْرَ مُتَجَانِفٍ لِإِثْمٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. All these verses confirm the fact that if one is in a state of necessity, then whatever is prohibited or was prohibited, such as eating pork or drinking wine or doing the haram, becomes lawful because of the necessity, but with a limit. The limit is what's sufficient for you to take care of that need, number one. Number two, you do not really desire it. You're not doing it regularly. It's just because of that necessity. And once the necessity is over, you cease. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. We have on the line now Sister Fatima from India. Go ahead, Sister, with your question, please.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum salam.
I asked you a question in the last episode, but I guess you missed it out, hence did not answer. I'll repeat my question today.
Okay.
Yeah, is there any particular significance in reciting Surah Baqarah?
Okay, we actually have this question in our pending questions. We will get to it, inshallah.
Let's answer it right now, inshallah. What is the question?
Another question I would like to add.
Okay.
Okay, I've heard, I always go in sajda and do dua. But someone told me of late that we are not supposed to go in sajda when we are not in prayer, or if we don't get sajda in Quran. Otherwise, just like that, we cannot go down in sajda. Is that true?
Okay.
And can we make dua in sajda in farad prayers as well as sunnah prayers?
Okay,
so these two questions, brother. My pending question and this one.
Okay, sure. Jazakallah khair, Sister, for that question. And we also have on the line Sister Khair from Nigeria. Go ahead, Sister, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, brother, I'm asking for an advice.
Okay.
And it is that I am seeking for an advice. Sheikh. Do I ask my husband to take in a second wife? Because I don't like the things that that he's doing. He's doing things that are not really Islamic, and we don't live together.
Okay.
So I thought whether I should ask him to take in a second wife. And if the Sheikh's answer is yes, I want the Sheikh to help me in prayer that he gets a religious committed wife.
Why do you want to ask your husband to take a second wife, Khair?
Huh?
Why do you want to ask your husband to take a second wife?
I see a lot of some messages that are not supposed to be in his cell phone. And I wouldn't want to mention first things on an international TV show.
Okay.
But those things, the content of the messages are not really good.
Okay.
They are not supposed to be seen in a Muslim cell phone, exchanging such messages from a man to a woman that is not his wife and not related to him whatsoever. So that is why I'm thinking we don't live together.
Okay.
We live in different cities.
Okay, I got it. I got your question.
So,
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that question. Sister, we have on the line now Shafiq from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Go ahead with your question, please.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have a question and I will appreciate if you can answer today.
We'll do our best, inshallah.
We have a proposal for one of our sisters. The person is working in Canada. He has a degree in accounting, bachelor's degree, as a financial analyst. And we are concerned about if riba interest is involved in such a job with accounting or financial affairs. So,
okay.
We need Sheikh Salah's opinion about this one.
Okay.
I can answer any question if I believe that Sheikh Salah knows about the financial analyst.
Okay. Jazakallah khair for that question. Yeah, we got it. Thank you for that question. Jazakallah khair for that. Sister Fatima from India, her pending question, we'll try to get to that inshallah. She wants to know which surahs of the Quran carry importance, and there's a belief in India that if you recite Surah Al-Baqarah for 40 days, it keeps anything bad from happening. Is there any basis for that?
Well, first of all, inshallah Azza I'm going to ask my assistants to post on the website a list of the sound ahadith with regards to the verses of some chapters of the Quran. Versus many other ahadith which are weak and not sound or fabricated, which are very common, and people memorize them in abundance. With regards to verses of the Quran that the Prophet ﷺ did not state. I did mention before that there was a person by the name Nuh ibn Abi Maryam who basically fabricated a whole book or a list of verses of every chapter of the Quran. And he confessed that he fabricated them, he made them up, because he notes that people have busied themselves with the study of fiqh and the seerah and the history. So he wanted to attract them back to the Quran by fabricating some ahadith concerning the verses of every chapter of the Quran, 114 chapters. So inshallah, when you browse the website in a few days, inshallah, hopefully you see the sound ahadith versus the weak ones, to be aware of that. But there is no hadith that says that if you recite Surah Al-Baqarah, it will protect you from anything happen to you or bad happen to you for 40 days. Surah Al-Baqarah is one of the greatest chapters of the Quran, and it contains the greatest verse ever in the Quran. That is the verse of Ayatul Kursi. And by the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, there are two verses about which there is a hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, and it's a sound hadith, that an angel came from heaven and informed the Prophet ﷺ that Abshir bi nurayni, rejoice with two lights that no prophet, no one before you have ever gotten any of them. These two lights are Surah Al-Fatiha and the last two verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون, to the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. This hadith is collected by Imam Muslim, and it's also judged as a sound hadith as stated earlier. There are some other hadith pertaining the verses of Surah Al-Baqarah and Ali Imran together, which are known as Al-Zahrawaini. The Prophet ﷺ said, recite them regularly, both Al-Baqarah and Ali Imran. And the Nabi ﷺ said, whoever recites the last two verses of Surah Al-Baqarah fi laylatin kafatah, the last two verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, whoever recites them on every single night before going to sleep, they should suffice him as means of protection. Means of protection for him, his family and household. And also the Prophet ﷺ said, reciting Surah Al-Baqarah in one's house, protect that house from a shaitan for 3 days. A shaitan cannot enter such house. But reciting a surah that protects you from any calamity for 40 days, there is no such surah. Calamities have to take place because that has been preordained, and no one will be saved completely from calamities, and the fact is the biggest proof to that. The Prophet ﷺ said, the most severely tested people are the prophets. Then people will be tested according to the level of their iman. So the more you're stronger in iman, the more you'll be tested and tried, because tests and trials are means of purification. It's not simply or just means of punishment. So with regards to Surah Al-Baqarah, as I said, it's one of the greatest surahs. It's got the greatest verse of the Quran, and the last two verses of Surah Al-Baqarah are so great to be recited every day and before going to sleep. And reciting Surah Al-Baqarah prevents a shaitan from entering that house for 3 days or 3 nights.
Okay,
Wallahu
now you were saying it's the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. I've heard some people say it's the last 10 verses. Is
now
there
if
any...
you're talking about the last 10 verses, then we'll have to go back to Surah Al-Kahf, where the first 10 verses and the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf, there are a couple of ahadith in the regard that they protect the person who recited them or memorized them from the trial of the false Messiah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair for that clarification and for that answer, Sheikh. We have on the line now Sister Hala from Egypt. Go ahead, Sister, with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, I had 2 questions. The first, in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah and the 10 days of Ramadan, is there any superiority to any of them on the other? And the second question is, there are pages appeared on Facebook which abuse the Prophet ﷺ and more than that. What is the right action towards those pages? Shall I share it and ask people to report it, or ignore it and try to close these pages?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sheikh.
You're welcome. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the beginning of Surah Al-Fajr, and we did cover that in the program of correct recitation, وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sworn by the 10 nights, whether the last 10 nights of the month of Ramadan or the first 10 days and nights of the month of Dhul Hijjah. In the sound hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, مَا الْعَمَلُ فِي أَيَّامٍ أَفْضَلُ مِنْهَا فِي هَذِهِ الْعَشْرِ. There is no better deed to be done during any time better than the first 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah. The first 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah, which inshallah will begin very soon, are so great. The scholars compare between the superiority of the 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah and the last 10 of the month of Ramadan, and they came out with this conclusion. The daytime of the month of Dhul Hijjah is superior to the daytime of the month of Ramadan of the last 10, while the last 10 nights of Ramadan are superior to the 10 nights of the month of Dhul Hijjah, the first 10. So anyway, we say these are virtues, these are gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon His servants in order to double and multiply and increase the reward for the little act or the little good deeds they do. So the first 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah, which are approaching very soon inshallah and around the corner, are so great that we encourage everybody to increase doing good deeds. Any good deed, fasting, praying at night, giving any charity, reciting Quran, and don't forget particularly the 9th day of the month of Dhul Hijjah, which is the day of Arafah. The Prophet ﷺ said, fasting on the 9th of the month of Dhul Hijjah or the day of Arafah expiates the sins of the past year and the sins of the upcoming year, the next year, 2 years. The sins of 2 years, we're talking about the minor sins, will be remitted and forgiven via fasting on the 9th day of the month of Dhul Hijjah. Then obviously on the 10th, there is no fasting because that is the Eid day. Wallahu alam.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. We're going to take a quick break, inshallah, so don't go anywhere. You're watching Ask Huda.
Oh
لبيك اللهم لبيك.
Hajj in the Quran. Hajj is the fifth pillar of Islam and one of the most important acts of worship for Muslims.
The journey of Hajj is a clear practice to the believers so that they come back from the journey of Hajj with the pillar of Islam being perfected. Almost every place on the face of earth, every corner of the world, you would have a representative of that place coming to Hajj. From the east and the west and from north and south, every single race you would find in the journey of Hajj. Nothing would be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless we follow the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in every major and minor thing. From all corner of the world. And this is the sign that everybody's coming for the same cause, for the same purpose. They are united, going to Hajj for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the first place of worship, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Mecca, blessed and guidance to all mankind and all that exists. Complete the Hajj and the Umrah. Lillah, meaning for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone.
Join Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan as he examines the meaning, wisdom, and essence of Hajj by examining its relevance in the Quran.
Huda, a light in every home.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to today's episode of Ask Huda. I'm your host, Omar Dunlap. I would like to take this chance to remind our viewers of our telephone number, 002-0238-555-248 or 249, or you can email us your questions at ask@huda.tv. We have on the line now Sister Sadi from Egypt. Go ahead, Sister, with your question, please. Sister, if you could, go ahead and turn the volume down on your television set, inshallah. Alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, actually I've got a question right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Which verse actually in the Holy Quran says that women should cover their hair? Because, you know, I've got some friends and according to what they say, that it is not actually, women are not obliged to cover their hair. Because during, you know, the previous time, some people even didn't actually well covered or fully covered when they were prostrating. Is that really true? Is it real? Are women really obliged to cover their hair, or it's?
I got it. Okay.
This is actually my question.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that question, sister, and we'll get to it as soon as we can, inshallah. Brother Mohammed from Qatar, he wants to know if you can explain the sunnah, and do we have to follow the seerah, and is there a difference between the two?
Well, first of all, the definition of the sunnah is whatever was reported from the Prophet ﷺ of either saying or actions or approvals. Saying such as when a companion narrates, such as Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, and his father narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, Bunya al-Islamu ala khams, Islam is based or built on 5 pillars. Then the hadith goes on and on. Or actions, such as when Uthman ibn Affan narrated that he have seen the Prophet ﷺ performing wudu in such way. Then he said, whoever performs wudu like me and prays 2 rak'ahs, all his sins will be forgiven, etc. Somebody describing the act of the Prophet ﷺ. Approvals. In some cases, the Prophet ﷺ watched things happening before him and he did not object. That's known in Islam as as-sunnatu taqririyya. The Prophet ﷺ approved that. He have known that Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, performed tayammum when he was the leader of an expedition. The water was cold, but there was water. So instead of taking a shower or ghusl with the cold water, he performed tayammum. And the Prophet ﷺ questioned him about that. He said, how could you lead the prayer while you are a junub? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I heard Allah said, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, don't kill yourself. So the Prophet ﷺ smiled. What does it mean? It means he approved that. So these are the sunan. We find that the seerah comprises all of that, but in a very unique fashion. That the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, which lists his lifestyle in or out of his house, with his companions, with his friends, with his enemies, and the different expeditions, it comprises all of what I said concerning a sunan. And that's why the best reference to that is the beautiful book of the seerah, which is compiled by Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy on him, which is known in Arabic as Zadul Ma'ad, or the provision of the traveler. In that you find this great Imam lists the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, and he deduces not just lessons, but ahkam. And he mentions the different opinions concerning those ahkam, whether this is sunnah, or this is wajib, or this is mandub, etc. I'll give you an example. When the Prophet ﷺ is reported by Ibn al-Qayyim in his book Zadul Ma'ad as seeing somebody who was wearing plain red, and he objected to that. He objected to that. Then we see that the Imam says then it is haram to wear red. But in another location he says that the Prophet ﷺ was wearing red. So he explains that the red was not plain. Perhaps it has stripes. So he concluded that what's prohibited is the plain red, the bright red. But red with other colors for men is permissible. But when he narrated that the Prophet ﷺ in one hadith said that do not drink while standing, and if you ever drink while standing, then you gotta vomit. So that indicates straightforward prohibition against drinking while standing. But meanwhile he narrated that in the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, that while he was performing the ceremonies of Hajj or Umrah, he drank from Zamzam water. He ordered some Zamzam water and he drank while standing. So that would waive or change the course of the ruling from being prohibited to mere dislike. And in order to give a permit or relief for people that it is okay to drink while standing, but it is best to drink while sitting down. So who teaches us the sunnah? By studying the seerah and deducing the ahkam from different occasions. And there is an endless cases like that. And that's why I highly recommend that everybody, if you cannot get to read and study the book of Zadul Ma'ad, then at least Al-Rahiq al-Makhtoom. This is one of the best compiled seerah book, and it's a brief summary of the biography of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ by Safi al-Rahman al-Mubarak Kafuri, may Allah have mercy on him. It's known as the Seal Nectar or Al-Rahiq al-Makhtoom. Then if you want to upgrade, and if you want to really educate yourself and master the seerah along with the ahkam, then Zadul Ma'ad. I know that some parts of Zadul Ma'ad have been translated to English, and I encourage those who are working on the translation of the Islamic books to translate this entire book as is, including the verification of the hadith and the deduction of the ahkam. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. We have on the line now Sister Aisha from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Go ahead, sister, with your question, please.
Wa
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My question is about Azan and Iqama. I heard on Al-Huda. I'm a little bit confused. If you're at home, you want to pray that you should not Azan or Iqama. So I'm a little bit confused. I want some more explanation.
Okay. You mean for women, right?
Yes. Home.
Okay.
You just start the prayers without Iqama or Azan.
Okay. Jazakallah khair for that sister, or for that question, sister, excuse me. We have a pending question here from Sister Fatima from India. She was told that you're not supposed to do sajda in prayer, making prostration in prayer, if you're not, or rather you're not supposed to make prostration outside of the prayer or unless you're reading Quran.
What you're told is right, is true. Because you can only fall in prostration outside the salah in either sujood al-tilawah or sajdat al-shukr, the grateful or gratitude prostration. If any person heard good news, or he or she was saved from a calamity, which he was certain that he would be overwhelmed with, so Allah saved him, it is recommended to fall in prostration immediately to give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prostrated himself on the back of his camel while entering Mecca victorious. The second is, if you are the reciter and you recite one of the 15 verses scattered throughout the Quran, which are known as ayatul sajda, it contains sajda, then you prostrate yourself. Or if the reciter, the reader recites and he makes sujood, and you're an audience, you should also make sujood as well. Other than that, what we see some people after the prayer, they make an independent sajda. What is it for? Or after they read the Quran, they make sujood. What is it for? They say, I'm making dua. That's not valid. This is not an act of worship. This is an innovation. Why? Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was talking about making dua in the sujood, he said, أَمَّا الرُّكُوعَ فَعَظِّمُوا فِيهِ الرَّبِّ. In the state of ruku' in the salah, glorify and magnify your Lord in it. وَأَمَّا السُّجُودِ فَأَكْثِرُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الدُّعَاءِ. And while you are in sujood or prostrating yourselves, increase making dua. فَقَمِنَ أَنْ يُسْتَجَابَ لِأَحَدِكُمْ أَوْ فَقَمِنٌ أَنْ يُسْتَجَابَ لِأَحَدِكُمْ, which means it is more worthy that your dua will be answered if you invoke Allah while you're prostrating yourselves. That is when in the salah, the sujood in the salah. Sister also inquired about, can we do that in the fard and in the nafl? Obviously, whether in fard or nafl. Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, when he narrated the very interesting hadith, how long was the Prophet's prayer in the tahajjud prayer? When he recited in one rak'ah al-Baqarah, al-Nisa, wa-Ali Imran, wal-Ma'idah, in one rak'ah. And he said the length of his ruku' was similar to the length of his recitation. And the length of his sujood was similar to that as well. So what do you say in sujood? You say Subhana Rabbiya al-A'la 100 times? You say Subhana Rabbiya al-A'la and you make dua. You make lots of dua, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَقْرَبُ مَا يَكُونُ الْعَبْدُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ وَهُوَ سَاجِدٌ.
Jazakallah khair for that answer, Sheikh. We do have a question here that we wanted to get to from Abdurrahim about the punishment in the grave. She said she was watching Huda TV. One person said that first thing that happens is the squeezing, but she also had heard that the first thing that happens is that angels ask questions. So what's happening with that?
Well, I was just told that we ran out of time, so inshallah Azza Jal, that question will be answered in the next episode, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for being with us today. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I would like to remind our viewers of our email address, ask@huda.tv. And for those of you who would like to support Huda TV with a financial contribution, you can email us at support@huda.tv. Until next time, I'm your host, Omar Dunlap, wishing you peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate